we have some input tags here, and they're for different purposes. This allows you to add text here. This one does not allow text, but only numbers. You can increase using these knobs and decrease. This is where you type your password. Whatsoever you type, it's not going to show, but show the default dots here. This is the date control. You can select any date. This is the time control. You can change AM, PM, etc. This is email, which is going to be evaluated later on. But this is one email control. And this is the checkbox that we have here. These are radio buttons. There are two groups. So how can we create all of this kind of input controls? Let's jump to the code directly and create there. And I'll erase all of this code for you. I'll just erase this code and write it from scratch. So we use input tag. Input tag is going to be used to create all of these kind of controls. And input tag is a self-closing tag. You'll have to close it like this. But in here, you have to specify attribute. The first attribute is that determines the type of the control. So the type is text. That means it's just the text box. And let's test it out. Refresh the page. And you see this is text box. Fine enough. Then let's create some breaks here. And two breaks, for example. And then we create a number box. For example, we say number. And by the way, we can enter a default value here in the text box. We can say the value attribute is to be specified here. We add a default value. For example, we say Ali. So Ali is going to be added to the value priorly. But if you want to show only the label, a placeholder, which is faded out, then you use the placeholder tag. Attribute. Placeholder attribute. And in here, you say, okay, enter your name. So what happens is this is not added to the value. Rather, it is just shown faded out behind the background of the control. When you start to type, it erases itself. You type something. If you erase everything, then it shows again. This is the number box. In same way, you can add value here and placeholder as well. For example, you say value is 100. So 100 is going to be the default value if you increase it or decrease it. So these were two simple boxes. Then we have the password box. The type is going to be password, as you know. And you can assign default value to it, but it's not a good idea. So we omit this one. But we can add a placeholder here. Then we have a control called date. These are HTML5 controls. Date automatically draws this kind of user interface for you, where you can select the date, select the year, select the month, whatever. You go to another year, and you can scroll it back to whatever year you want. For example, let's scroll it a little. It's like 2017, Feb, and 15, etc. And then we have a control called, its type is time, and you can let the user select the time, and that's it in here. Then we have the email control. Okay, email control. And this is operated within the forms. We're going to study the forms. This is used within the forms. When form is submitted, it's automatically evaluated, but not on the runtime. Then we have the checkbox. Okay, this is one interesting control. And if you see here, you will have just one checkbox. This is the email, and this is the checkbox. Okay, checkbox is going to be simple checkbox without any caption. So you'll have to add caption to it. For example, you say, Okay, I agree terms and conditions, etc. And then this label is added, but it's not part of the checkbox. What you have to do is when you click this label, it's not going to check or uncheck. So what you have to do is in quote both of these, the label and the checkbox within a label. Within a label, unnamed label, it's not necessary to name a label. And that's it. Once you are done, now when you click this, the label as well, the label is going to let the user select the checkbox. You can check the checkbox directly or click the label. Then we have a very interesting control, which is a yes. If you use its property, one attribute checked, it's going to be by default checked. Let me just check again. Label CHEC. Okay, checked. If you add checked attribute, and it's by default going to be checked. Now let's get to the radio controls. They are created exactly the same way, and they have the checked property. One more thing is their name is radio. The type name is radio. For example, you say I know HTML. And then you create one more radio button. You say, I do not know HTML. And how do we differentiate the two different? Let's remove one break from here so that comes together. Okay, so they are together. Now one is, these both are selected because they're not part of the group. They do not have a name attribute. Why name attribute is necessary? Because when we start to create forms, these names will carry the value and we will have corresponding variables in the backend scripts, PHP and C++ scripts. So we'll have to add name property. For example, I say group GROUP1, group 1, and this one also is named as group 1. So when they have similar name, they have different values. Now one is selected amongst these two. And what do we have to do is to differentiate, and when group 1 value is sent through the form, we'll have to specify value here, just like the way we mentioned for the text box. So we say this value is yes, and in here the value is no. Okay, so how do we create yet another group box which does not have anything to do with these two radio buttons, but it acts separately? It's really so simple. What you do is you create yet another group. The name should be differentiated. This is going to be the variable that you are going to receive in there. So I say, for example, I know C++ and I do not know C++. And we have these, and one amongst them is checked here. And the first one amongst the first group is checked. Okay. So we see that this one is checked and this one is checked. So these act separately. These two groups are acting separately. They have nothing to do with each other. The HTML group and the C++ group. Then we have placeholders. We can put placeholders anywhere in within these tags using exactly the same way we used for the text box. And we can specify value here by default. For the checkbox, we use checked. And for the radio as well, we use checked. If this property or this attribute is specified, you can name it like this, true, or maybe checked, for example. It's exactly the same. As long as this attribute is there, the checkbox or the radio will be selected or checked by default. If you have any question regarding these controls, let me know.